If your offer isn't printing consistent revenue, I'm willing to bet you're missing one of these three things that I'm about to break down here on my iPad. And the way it kind of goes is all about building trust with your customer. And I've got a formula, a framework that you can follow to help identify why you might be losing those customers and what you can implement to help save those customers. So let's jump in right now. All right, so this is a very simple framework. And once I explain it to you, you'll notice it in all businesses. So number one is I. And what I stands for is information. And number two is A. A stands for application. And number three is S. And S stands for supplementation. Now, why are these so important? Because when consumers are they have a problem and they're looking for a solution, they're actually looking for information. You're probably like, why aren't they looking for a solution? Because consumers don't think that way. They're looking for information on how to get a solution for their problem. And oftentimes that means Google or Dr. Google or ChatGPT or scrolling through TikTok or Facebook or whatever their main medium for collecting information is. And I can tell you, if they collect information from you, you now have your foot in the door. That doesn't mean you're the end all be all and you're going to be the resource for all of their information, but it means you actually have your foot in the door and can nurture that relationship over time. Now, the next piece is application. And what application is the application of the information that they just found, right? So if you can then help that person take that information and then apply it to their life so that they get a solution, you build a lot of trust with that person and they want to hear everything you have to say. And then all you have to do is just don't screw it up. Supplementation. Just stay in front of that person, tee them up as much as you can over an extended period of time. Supplementation. So information, the application of information, supplementation. So let's break it down and how it kind of looks for a consumer in that kind of journey. And the great way to look at it is a scale from 0 to 100. And in between that scale, we're going to plug in IAS. So when you give information out there, you're probably getting somebody to about a 5. That's going to be I. Information is plentiful, as you probably know, surfing the internet, coming to this YouTube video, or going through ChatGPT. Information is all over the place. But the fact that they get it from you and they listen to that information is building a little bit of trust with that consumer, right? So now what you want to do is help them apply that information. That gets them to about like 70-ish range, right? 60, 70, 80-ish range, just depends on the person. But if you can then help them apply that information to then get a result, they have a lot of trust with you, right? Because you're taking somebody from 0 all the way to 100, and 100 being maxed out trust. They trust you to hold their baby over fire, guide them through, I don't know, I was going to go on a random tangent there, but they trust you, right? They trust you with their life. And that's what you're trying to do with your customers, right? And now this next piece from like the 80-ish range to the 100-ish range is all supplementation. All you have to do is just don't screw up the relationship. You got them the result. Keep getting them the result. Stay in front of them. This doesn't just mean put them on auto renew and let the subscription recur. That's not what I'm talking about. That's part of it, but you don't want to screw it up. You just want to stay in front of the person. Keep giving them what they're actually wanting. If it's your first time seeing one of my videos, my name is Devin Merklin. I am the founder of Xscale, which is a growth partner that helps CPG, supplement, health and wellness brands grow. I was employee number 1 for a supplement brand that we grew from 0 to over $50 million in less than 4 years, and this is exactly how we did it. Okay, so let's break this down even further so that you actually have some actionable things, right? So now what I want to get in your head a little bit is I want you to think about your customer journey and think about inconsistencies in your revenue. Maybe you're thinking about churn, maybe you're thinking about maybe my retention, how long I'm keeping a customer around isn't very long. I want to work on that, and I want you to try and bucket those kind of issues into those three categories: I, information; A, application; or S, supplementation. Oftentimes, if people are, they're not really adopting the product, that's because you didn't lead with information. If they're churning, also, if you're not giving them information, but if they're churning really quickly, that's because you lack the application piece. You forgot to teach them how to get a result with your product. And then S is supplementation. If you're not getting that recurring revenue, or customers aren't sticking around for a long period of time, or you have a low LTV, this is often because you're lacking in that supplementation piece. So let's actually break down some tangibles on what you can be doing for information. So for info, there's a lot of creative ways to do this, right? We can do this through blogs, getting blog articles out there, just flooding the internet with information, right? Because people are constantly looking for it. If you're more privy and more of a direct response marketer, advertorials are a great way to kind of mix the two, right? This is really hard for direct response marketers because we're all about the sale, but this is a great way to mix it. Like an advertorial gets them the information, but it's also targeted on getting them the sale, right? You could do content, obviously, right? Any kind of social media content, YouTube videos, things of that nature, stay in front of that person. Another thing that we can do is kind of PDF guide. So putting any kind of PDF guide out there, whether it be here's a 3-day detox or whatever it might be, something along those lines for health and wellness brands, just make sure that it's short. It's not this extended window like 14 days plus. We'll get to that for application, but short little PDF guides that get them the information that they need, maybe a little bit of application in there, is really good. One I really like is recipe guides. So especially if you're in the health and wellness space, if you can create a recipe guide that maybe you have a collagen product and in those recipes it utilizes collagen, this is a great way to get information out there and slowly introduce them to your product without overselling, right? Just hyperlinking in that PDF to your collagen is a great way to give them something that they might be looking for, like healthy recipes or natural recipes, because maybe they want to go on a diet or whatever it might be, without overselling because they're not quite ready for it just yet. Okay, so let's jump into application. So application is a little bit more tricky. So this is where a lot of brands kind of struggle. So my favorite one is challenges, right? Anything that is like a 14-day, a 20-day, a 30-day challenge, these are perfect because the way you want to structure these is like if the ultimate goal is to lose 10 pounds in the challenge, what you're doing from day 1 through day 30 is indoctrinating the person and getting them from their current state to their desired state. This is the ultimate form of application. Now, I want you to hear this. Don't oversell your product during this process. You're going to immediately turn people off. They're going to feel like they're in some kind of funnel or trap that they're going to recognize it. So during this period, what you really want to be doing is teaching them the basics, how to eat healthy, exercise, read the back of a label, etc., in order to get their result. If you can just get them their result, they will naturally come back to you because you were the individual, you were the entity to help them do that. So challenges are really good for this. Webinars is also another good format here, and not like a sales pitch webinar, obviously, but like webinars and master classes are really good for this because somebody is looking for that information and you can give them that information, and then you can turn it up a notch with a 2-hour-long webinar or a 3-day master class, whatever it might be, where the entire time during those events, you're actually walking somebody through like how to eat healthy or whatever it might be. And then the last one that I'll put here before we go on a tangent, but is PDF guides again, right? But do it for 14 days plus because these need to be more interactive. And in these PDF guides, if this is the deliverable for application, what you want to do is make sure that they're in an email sequence or some form of communication where you're actually following up with them every day or every other day for those 14 plus days to make sure that they're actually doing the things that are in that guide, because too many people sign up for stuff and then they lose it in the wayside. Okay, so now let's go to supplementation. And so supplementation is a lot more simple, right? Your only job here is just don't screw it up. If you did the first two right and you have the sale, just stay in front of the person. Now, the best one here is subscriptions. But you can't stop there, right? This is, if you don't have subscriptions, add subscriptions. This will help with the supplementation piece. But if you're actually trying to build some good lifetime value, reduce churn, keep the retention high, you got to go a little bit further, right? So that's where you want specific content or like newsletters going out to these types of customers. And why this is so important, you're probably like, wait, that's the same as information. Of this content and newsletter, this type of asset is different than what we're putting on the front end. These are assets to meet these customers where they're at, right? So if they purchased your product and they subscribed, the last thing you want to do is do hardcore sales to them more, right? Instead, you want to nurture them and bring them along this journey so that they're continuing to use their product. They're continuing to open your content. They're continuing to interact with you. That's what you ultimately want at the end of the day. Another thing here is every 4 to 6 weeks, you want some kind of promotion. And when I say promotion, this doesn't need to be a sale. This doesn't need to be a BOGO deal or anything like that. Remember, you got them where you want them. Now just keep them buying and keep them interacting with you. So this might be the release of a new flavor. This might be release of a new product. This might be a new training. Think about all the things that you can do every 4 to 6 weeks to keep the engagement going with these customers, right? Because you might be doing an event that's specifically targeted towards cold customers. These types of events need to go towards people that are more warm or hot. So there's just a couple of ideas. Obviously take these, run with them. There's a lot more than just this, or this video would probably be like 30, 40 minutes long. But just take these, tweak them a little bit. There's a lot of different ways to look at this as it pertains to information, application, and supplementation. So at some point in your customer journey, one of these are going to be breaking down, and this is a great way to think about it because all big businesses do this. This is how they grow. This is how they maximize the lifetime value of their customers. Because if you have a strong lifetime value, you can afford to spend a little bit more to acquire a customer at the end of the day. So when you're looking at your customer journey and you're not seeing the numbers that you want to see, use this framework and think through, all right, where am I missing some stuff? Am I missing out on the information piece? Am I missing out on the application piece? Or am I missing out on the supplementation piece? And I guarantee you, when you go through this exercise, what's probably going to happen is you're going to look at the information and the application piece and you're going to think that's fluffy. And all you're going to want to do is sell more. It's natural. That's what we want to do. But if you implement those pieces and you're playing the long game and trying to maximize lifetime value, information and application is actually going to be those pieces that drive that lifetime value in the long run. If you want to go over this more in depth, there's a link down in the description. I do a full free training. It's about an hour long on how we actually implemented this into a $50 million supplement brand and how I've implemented it into various different niches over the years. Click that link. You'll be able to watch it for free. It just goes over everything that we talked about here, just a lot more in depth, and actually shows you the actual funnels and offers and things that we've done over the years to actually grow businesses using this framework.